Managers of Reddit, past or present. What is your favorite I am the manager story? I worked at a restaurant where you filled in a ticket with all the ingredients you wanted on your pasta or pizza or salad. There were large boards above a counter explaining how to order correctly. Once customers filled out their ticket, they could bring it to the register. During a weekend lunch rush with a line of at least 25 people, a woman comes up to the counter and tells our cashier what she wants. When the cashier told her that he needed a ticket, she got annoyed about the inconvenience, all while the line builds up behind her. She demands to be given a ticket and begins filling it out right there. Seeing this, I come up to the cashier and tell him to ring up the people behind her, while she takes her sweet time making the important decision of which pasta sauce she wants. She finally finishes, pays, and sits with her gaggle of companions. Later she comes up to me and tells me that my behavior of having the waiting customers pay before her was extremely rude. I respond by telling her we try to make sure every customer gets speedy service, and her holding up the line because she didn't read our large signs was also rude to all of the other customers. She tells me that she'd like to speak to the manager to complain about me. With a gleeful, and maybe slightly evil, grin I reply, "You already did. I'm the manager." The look on her face when she realized she wasn't going to get to bitch and feel vindicated about my mistreatment of her was lovely, and even though this was years ago, it still brings me joy. Automotive industry here. Quick lube style place. Franchise where owner only owns 2 locations. I'm the service center manager of 1 location and area manager over both. Customer rolls up and asks for an oil change. She drives her van in, hops out, and walks around the side of the building. Once we finish the service, she walks back around and gets in the van. She starts to pull the van out and starts yelling about her window, saying we broke it and that it wouldn't roll up now. I immediately pulled up the camera footage clearly showing the window was down when she pulled in, and she didn't want to hear it. She promptly asked for the manager. I explained that I was the manager. She demanded to speak to my regional manager. I explained that I was the only person she'd speak to, as the owner is fairly absent and doesn't handle petty store-level complaints. She called the corporate 1-800 number on the back of our invoices. Because we're a franchise, the complaint gets typed out and sent right back to my email inbox with a phone number to contact the customer. She wasn't pleased to hear my voice calling her to shut her down again. I used to work for a particularly large ISP doing tech support. One day the guy working next to me was dealing with a particularly rude business customer. The business customers were usually treated like kings, but this guy was having a particularly hard time even getting a word in. Eventually he put up his hand to motion the supervisor come talk to the customer. Right then the owner of the company happened to be walking by with another one of the execs. I've met the guy a few times at the company's social events, and he is a really down-to-earth employee-friendly boss. He asked what the issue was with his customer, and after it was explained, he took the headset and picked up the line. After listening for about 4 to 5 minutes, he said very flatly, "That's never going to happen, especially not when you have an attitude like a 13-year-old girl." Again listening for a minute before he said, "I don't have a manager. I own this company and I don't have to listen to this shit from a person like you, and neither do my employees. I'm terminating your account with us." He hung up and I watched him disable this guy's account and add a note to the file. "Customer is a shit. Do not reinstate account, boss." Then he just handed back the headset and carried on about his day. Back in the early 2000s, I worked as assistant manager of a popular video game retailer. On a slow day, I had a guy come in and tell me he wanted to buy 2 PS2s, 2 copies of all the popular games, controllers, etc. Personal experience told me that something was fishy. I gathered up all he wanted and proceeded to ring it up. He whips out a credit card and tells me that this will be tax exempt. His credit card was for the local airport authority and says tax exempt on it with no number. So I asked the guy for a copy of his tax exempt certificate. He says that he doesn't bed one and anything charged to the card is tax exempt. I proceeded to tell him how tax exemption works and the fines that my company would face if I didn't follow the law. There was some back and forth, and in the end I refused to process it as tax exempt. He refused to make the purchase unless it was tax exempt. He says, "You just lost a big sale, buddy." I was already on my way back to the stockroom, So I replied back, "Well, I'll just go the back and cry then." He got pissed and asked for the manager. "I am the manager." "Well then, who's your boss? I want his number." I proceeded to grab a business card and write down his name and office number on the back. After the guy left, I realized I might have given him the wrong number. I ended up calling the district manager anyway and explained the situation anyway. He agreed I was right for refusing the transaction. I then called the airport authority and spoke to HR that explained that the person was just fired that morning and said that he didn't have the card on him. They were pretty sure the card hadn't been deauthorized yet and thanked me for notifying them. When I was in high school, I worked at a candle store in the mall. For the most part, everything was returnable for store credit, unless it was a sale item or holiday-specific stuff. I had a woman giving me the hardest time about not being able to return something that had obviously been used for an event and she no longer needed. She asked for the manager, who was there but wasn't satisfied with her answer. She went on to ask that we contact someone else about it, and it just happened that we had a visitor from head office at the store that day. Still not happy with getting the same response from all of us, she went on that general disgruntled customer rant of "This place is terrible and I'm going to tell everyone how terrible it is and no one is going to shop here," and in the best move I've ever seen, the woman from head office dragged a ladder out into the middle of the mall walkway and insisted that the woman start telling people about her experience right then and there. The woman quickly shut up and left. It was beautiful. Not my story, but my parents. They owned a franchise deli some 12 years ago. My mom was there full-time making things run smoothly, and my dad would be there sometimes to help out when he wasn't working his tech job. Well, this lady came in one time and ordered her food. When it arrived, she claimed that the kitchen made it incorrectly. My mom apologized for the inconvenience and compared her meal, as well as gave her a certificate for a free sandwich next time the lady came in. So the lady comes in again, orders her food, and again claims it was made incorrectly. My mom again apologizes and gives her another coupon for a free sandwich. This happened probably 1 or 2 more times. My dad had heard about it and was convinced they were just being scammed by this lady. Well, the next time the lady comes in, my dad happens to be working the kitchen. Sandwich lady comes through the drive-thru and orders. My mom recognizes her, and so to make sure everything is perfect, my dad makes her food himself and gives it to her. A couple minutes later, the lady calls the store to say her food has been made wrong again. My mom sets the phone down and goes to my dad and says the lady is on the phone and says you made her food wrong again. My dad says you tell that bitch I didn't make her food wrong and that she is never welcome in this restaurant again. My mom picks up the phone and says, "Ooh," and the lady goes, "I heard that. You tell that boy that he is fired." And my mom responds with, "Ma'am, that boy is the owner of the restaurant." The lady hung up and never returned. My parents both have a long laugh about that whenever they are thinking of all the stupid bullshit that went on with that restaurant. A couple years ago, I had been given a great opportunity to open a new restaurant. I was in my mid-20s, and this was the first chance I had been given to completely run the show. It was our opening weekend, so I called up one of my old managers who's also a good friend and asked if he would come help me for the first week, which he happily agreed to. So it's Saturday night. Every table is filled and the wait is over an hour. Things were going better than I expected, although I honestly wasn't sure what to expect. I and my friend, who's about twice my age, were just walking the dining room, spending the majority of our evenings clearing plates and talking with customers. Everyone was cheerful and many commented on how happy they were to have a new restaurant in the area. Then came the first problem customer in our young history. When I cleared her plate and asked how everything was, she snapped about how they had been waiting 5 whole minutes for the server to pick up their credit card. I told her I could help her with that and reached for the card she put on the table. A look of complete disgust came over her face, and she snatched the card back and put it in her purse. Okay. Cool. A couple minutes later, a server asked me if I picked up the card. I told them no, she put it in her purse and that she was ready to give it to her. That's when it went off the rails. This woman insisted that I had taken her card and was demanding I return it. I stopped back over and told her I watched her put it back in her purse, which she vehemently denied and started to be unreasonably loud. She began demanding I find her card now, or she was calling the police, and actually stood up and was stomping her foot like a child. This actually threw me off as I started to wonder if in the chaos of the night, I actually did take her card. So I look everywhere, no card. I go back and ask her again to please look in her purse. She refuses. My friend sees this happening and comes over to try and assist. It was at that point that she stood up, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, "Your filthy bus boy lost my credit card, and you better find it now." Now it started to make sense. She was looking down on me, and that's why she didn't want me to touch her card, because she assumed I was some sort of low life. He explained to her that I was actually the manager. Her behavior was appalling, and asked her to look in her purse for the card. What a surprise, there it was. She put her head down, paid, and left without saying a word. Never saw her again.